for me, I'm dealing with all these medical issues, and I moved back to Texas, go to UTA and finish up my accounting degree, and start working for Clifton Larson Allen, which was SPF at that time. Rick Baumeister, you know him, and that whole group. So I was working in accounting. But during that entire time, I was still dealing with all my medical issues. At that point, the VA and I, they don't do this anymore, but they would auto ship medications. And so at one point I had, almost 500 pills of hydrocodone sitting in my house because, I've got all this medication, but I'm not wanting to, because when you're on so many different medications, you're like a walking zombie. I was highly functional still. I was doing all my work, but I was a walking zombie. And so it got to the point where I was looking in the mirror and I was like, this is not who I want to be.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook, the podcast where we welcome business leaders, CEOs, and industry experts to discuss the rise to the top, building wealth, and real estate insights. Here's your host, Jeremy Spann.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook. For more information on this show, go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com. And for my fellow Marines like I got here today, that's experience with an ED. Not just experience with an ED. myexperiencedrealtor.com. You can click on this episode, other episodes to find more information on our guests, what this particular show was about. This episode was about. You can also download this episode from all the different platforms to include YouTube. If you want to see as my friend Craig, fishing guide, called my friend here today, looking like Vladimir Putin out there on the frozen lake. We'll come and talk about that because it is a little bit funny. He's not Vladimir Putin. So yeah, go there, click on that, and find more. And if you like this show and you think somebody else get value, forward the show to them. Just send it to them. Say, hey, download the show and watch this show. But we're not here to talk about real estate today, even though if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, go to our website, click Find a Trusted Professional. We're here to welcome my friend Andrew Cagle, fellow Marine. What's up, Devil Dog?
How are you, Jeremy?
Man, I'm still, where are we? We're at not quite the 48-hour mark, 36 hours for recovery. Yep. Yeah, we had a little event on Saturday, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It's been a past few days have been a little bit of recovery, a little rest, recuperation, hydration.
February has not worked out well for you because you've been with me twice now in February.
Yes.
And you pretty much only drink once a year, and I have completely train wrecked that for you.
My liver is trying to catch up.
Well, like all these that we start off with, as my father-in-law says, I must do a joke. So I got a great joke. Great joke. They're not great jokes. You ready for this one?
Yes, I am.
So singing in the shower is fun until you get soap in your mouth. Then it's a soap opera.
It's a bad dad joke.
There's nothing good. Although, it was really funny is Laura and I, so for the audience, my good friend Andrew here, Cagle, I just call him Cagle. We always call each other by our last names. The only time we use our first names is if we want something or we're getting ready to do something bad to him. So Cagle came up to see me in Colorado a couple of weeks ago, and we did some ice fishing, had some fun, and I was cracking up the whole weekend because I forgot. So Cagle has a very dry, sarcastic personality, and he was just dropping one-liners all weekend, especially when we were out ice fishing with Craig, and I was just cracking up, right? Now, for the audience, you might think that ice fishing is like you're out there shivering in cold, so we layered up. And then we get out there, and our fishing guy, Craig, he's got the little auger that drills the holes, and we're out there fishing. But, man, when that sun comes out, it gets hot. Like, I'm down to a T-shirt. Well, Cagle here, who still works out, I've gone from Swift, Silent, and Deadly to Slow, Fat, and Armless. He's gone from Swift, Silent, and Deadly to trying to be GQ's centerfold magazine cover, right? And so he didn't have a short sleeve shirt on, so he just takes his shirt off, right? And here he is, he's like me in his 40s and just walking around looking like he's been working out. So we were going from one lake walking over to the other lake. And here comes Cagle, and Craig yells out, he was like, damn it, we got Vladimir Putin out here fishing with us? And then what was funny is a week later, that's when Russia invaded Ukraine. And there was a little, because we took a picture of Cagle shirtless out there on the ice fishing, and we dropped it in the thread saying, look at that. Putin had such a good time ice fishing that he invaded Ukraine.
Yeah. Don't know how much I want to be associated with Vladimir Putin, but it was definitely a lot warmer than I was expecting. So I get up to Colorado thinking, oh, it's going to be, 20 degrees and it's going to be cold, and then didn't bring any short sleeve shirts or anything. And so we get to the lake where we were ice fishing, and it gets pretty warm. And so I'm like taking off layers, and Jeremy's got a short sleeve t-shirt, and I'm like, I don't have any short sleeves, and it's getting way too hot. So I was like, well, I'll just take my shirt off, get a little suntan at the same time, and it was a good time though. So
yeah, well, thanks a lot for showing off. I appreciated it. You show up like you're working out, and I've got body by dad, right?
Well, I got to motivate you, right?
You're right. I don't know about that. Jamie Peace has been trying to motivate me for many years. Although I did fit back into my tux for this last weekend's event. So let's talk about that. Let's segue over and talk about that. So Cowtown Warriors. So Cagle and I met through Cowtown Warriors. Also a Marine. Was over there in the special operations community, MARSOC, ran schoolhouse, stuff like that. We'll come back, talk about his journey, get to all that. So we were introduced by Van Way. And so Andy Van Way introduced us. You were working at a nonprofit.
I was working at Clifton Larson Allen, which is
a
CPA firm. So I was doing nonprofit audit at the time.
Nonprofit audit, that's right. And then, like everyone, you got on an elevator with me, which meant you were either going to give me money and or free time to come volunteer on Cowtown Warriors. And so that's how Cagle and I got to know each other really well, and helped us. I mean, the organization is where it's at today because you came in and were like, no, this is how we do this to make this better. So Cowtown Warriors is really kind of a startup, right? An idea that I got, that we started it, and we were doing it good, but it could always be done better, and that level of accounting acumen that you were able to bring in made that even better, because it's not, it's one thing to be able to look at your donors and say 100% of your money is absolutely going straight to the mission. None of it goes out, but there was still a better way to account for the money that was going out to these recipients, how it was categorized, and then getting our official 501c3, because we were operating as a DBA off of Metroplex Marines' 501c3. So we made that transition, and then you gave me a lot of guidance on how our board had just gotten big. So in order for us to function on a volunteer basis, our board at one time was like 18 Marines.
17 Marines.
17 Marines, which is way too much, because it was like Richard Wagner said, we were more like a drinking club with a charity problem. And so it just wasn't as efficient. We were still accomplished mission doing stuff. But so we were able to downsize the board to 7 board members. And you were like, hey, here's what we need to do. We need to get this thing more efficient, decision-making, make it faster, be able to get these recipients faster, get them through the pipeline faster. And you gave me just such great sound advice that you were like, hey, but we're going to need to shrink the board. And one of the things you'd even said, you go, look, you've been kind of tired for a while and ready to roll off of this thing. He goes, but I think it would be a good stand in leadership for the people that might be resistant to leaving. Right. If they say, hey, listen, for the greater cause, I'm leaving. Who else is going to go with me? So that way we can have the right 7 people run this.
Right. And, so when I first came on the board, Metroplex Marines was kind of the parent organization. And, I saw that you had wanted to kind of branch out and do your own thing with your nonprofit. And you had a larger vision. So I said, well,
our nonprofit.
Yes, our nonprofit. Our nonprofit, yes. So I was like, well, how about we put in paperwork for the 501c3? And, once we get that approved with the IRS, then we can, really kind of grow this organization and, help the vets that we're wanting to help. And, it's a long process, and nothing's ever easy with the government. The IRS wants all this information from you, and so we went through that process. And as we did, the board grew. As people heard about Cowtown or attended the Cowtown Warrior Ball, they were like, "Oh, I want to be part of this organization. How can I help?" And it got to the point where we were, we're a drinking club with a charity problem, and everybody wants to get involved, but there were kind of the plank holders that said, hey, we've been doing this for 5, 6, 7 years. I was the treasurer for 5 years, and I was like, it's about time for us to roll off and let some new blood in. And sometimes it's tough because you want to be part of the organization. In fact, over the weekend, I was talking to a couple of the guys, and they're like, "Are you going to come back on the board?" And I was like, "Well, maybe." I miss it, but it's like, when you are on the board of a nonprofit organization, for me, my take is that you have to have a purpose on that board. Sometimes people like to be on organizational boards just because they want that, kind of the fame and the prestige of being a board member. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, what is your purpose on this board? And several times, we had discussions about, okay, is it time for us to roll off and allow new people to be on the board? There's a lot of times when, things would get bogged down. A lot of these board meetings would kind of run way over 3 hours later, and we still haven't made decisions. And so I think for me, it was, it actually worked out very well because I was able to transition into the job that I'm doing now, and I was just getting, way over tasked with things. And so I said, I think it's time for me to roll off the board. Let's find someone else to come in and be the treasurer. And at that time, that was a perfect time for you to roll off the board as well. And you're a busy man. You've got a lot of stuff that was going on. So
yeah, and for the audiences, look, we weren't trying to run from something. It was
right.
This was very, very hard decisions for me and Andy and several of these other folks out there. But when we built Cowtown Warriors, right? I mean, you came in during still the foundation building stages, right? It took a lot of energy, right? Because we have great board members, but like any board, 20% of your board members are doing 80% of the work, like anything, 80-20 rule. And it was time to be ready to well, a couple of things is we were exhausted by then, right? I mean, again, nobody's getting paid salaries, nobody gets compensated, right? This is all 100% volunteer. We were given a lot of time, to do all this because we were doing all the vetting. This was before having an executive director that is a paid position that we have a donor that pays for him. So that doesn't interfere with any of the 100% of the donations coming in to go straight to the mission. We have a donor that writes his salary check every year, and we have a donor that writes the check that has the annual event. So that way 100% of the money comes in, goes straight to the cause. And we have very lean operating costs. You were really good at keeping us lean on that. Like, hey, this stuff is unnecessary. We don't need this. This is what we need to do, blah, 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 blah. And so you were not only instrumental in helping me get this thing to the point where we could, but it was a hard decision because, you don't want to leave something that you've built, but we also knew, and you were really good at helping me through this. You said, look, man, it's time for us old guys to get out of the way for this young blood to come in here and take it to the next level. And by looking at this last Saturday's performance, I thought the transitions were much smoother. I thought that it just was smoother the whole way. I thought
like the raffle ticket. This year it's so much easier.
We were done with the raffle in 5 minutes.
Exactly,
and that usually takes an hour.
We went from in the beginning where we're actually little raffle tickets, the actual tickets, and accepting cash for raffle tickets, and had the little credit card machines with the Boy Scouts, which unfortunately they weren't able to be there this year. Having gone from that to where, hey, everything's all pre-set up, your credit card information's all in there, and all you have to do is decide how many raffle tickets you want to purchase and to which item they go to. And so by using the technology, that I think that was Bazon's kind of baby.
Yeah.
When he got that in, and that made it so much smoother for that.
Poor Bazon. Poor Bazon.
He got stuck in my old job.
He got stuck in your old job, and now he's getting ready to get stuck in the new job. So what Cagle's referring to is Bazon Morris, Naval Academy, artillery officer, good guy. We suckered him into coming on the board. So the whole board is made up of Marines. And so the only time the board has not had a Marine was David Goodrow, who was an Army vet, who helped me get this thing started. Me, James Core, Terry Ryan, and him got this thing started. They really bailed me out because this thing was falling apart before we had our first event, and he jumped in and really helped out. And so we got all these Marines, and then Bazon did such a great job at the Treasury this year that at the after party down in the Davey O'Brien room, we said, you know what, James, you're coming up on the end of your 2-year tour as president. I think it's time that we get a new one. How about Bazon? And everybody's like, yeah, how about Bazon? And Bazon just looks at me. So here's the funniest part, too, is so I was really honored at this event. And it's funny, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because of Bazon. Is the guys that asked me said, hey, listen, we want you to get up and do the ask. They were like, man, there's just something about when you get up on stage, you know how to get people to empty their pockets. And I said, cool, what do you need me to say? What do you need me to do? They go, no, just do your thing, that you usually do, but you're going to know your cue. And I was, y'all got me good this year. And is anybody that knows me, especially like Cagle and whatnot, is I'm quiet about a lot of things. Right. Not because I'm not proud. I'm very proud of everything that I've done. There's just certain aspects of things that I'm quiet about. Some of the things I did into PD, what I did in the Marine Corps I was outspoken. Just never felt I needed to. And it's just never what it is. So like my shadow boxes are mounted in my closet, in my wall, in my closet, right? I just don't
part
keep
of who
things.
you are, but it's not who you are.
Right, 100%. Well, in one of my moves a number of years ago, I think it was when we moved to Fox Hollow in 2013, is I had this big chest that had all my Marine Corps memorabilia. And as these guys joke, as I was in when, Muse were still on pirate ships, and we were still using musket loaders. So we didn't have digital stuff. So all my photographs were, actual photographs, like my T-shirts and certificates and stuff like that from schools that I've been to, my
Your
NCO
covers.
sword.
Right.
My paddle that I got when I left my unit. There's some things that are irreplaceable.
Sure.
You could go buy another NCO sword, but it's not going to be the same one that you carry when you're in. Well, it came up missing in a move. And what it was is we were moving into a house that was being renovated. We were going to live upstairs while the downstairs was being done, so stuff went to storage. And when we went and got it from storage, moved it in when the house was done. My assumption is I think one of the movers stole it. Is what I think, because it just doesn't come up missing.
Very likely.
So, and missing that NCO sword and some of that stuff, some of that memorabilia that still I wouldn't put up on a wall or anything, but it was still important stuff to me. And it really was just kind of, it just always kind of sat on my mind for almost the last 10 years. Like, man, it's just stuff that's irreplaceable. And so at the event, they said, hey, we got something for you. And they called me up and they had handcrafted a paddle with Cowtown Warrior stuff. So not the same one as I got from my unit, but it was just enough of like, this meant a lot to me. I was speechless. How often is Jeremy Spann speechless, especially in front of a microphone?
Not very often.
So I was like, what? And it had the very first coin of the very first event to the current coin, 8 years, eight events of raising over $2 million and helping hundreds and hundreds of vets that it stopped me in my track. Matter of fact, this is how funny it was. So then I was like, I had practiced with Laura that when I got up to do the ask, everything was going to be done in under 5 minutes. I had rehearsed, because everybody says I talk too damn much. But it threw me off so much that I forgot what I was going to say. But the one thing that popped in my mind was I was like, I'm not walking off this stage till I get $100,000. And we got there. Matter of fact, Ricky Salas, my buddy I went in the Marines with, it's funny, this was his first event. He goes, dude, you're my wife's hero. She goes, you raised $100,000 in 2 minutes, right?
Only Spann can do that.
But on the back of the paddle, there was all these signatures and just like, hey, thanks for getting me a part of this. Thanks for that. But Bazon said, hey, thanks for sucker me into coming to do this. Fuck you. Semper Fidelis. Bazon Morris. But it was just kind of, it really meant a lot to me. But then I was sitting there looking at the audience, and I was sitting there even looking at, I was like, dude, look at, we went and found the right people. We did the right thing getting out of the way. Right. We got out of our own way so that way this thing could be bigger and better. And I think the rough numbers are right now is we raised over $400,000 on Saturday, where 100% of that money is going to wounded, ill, and injured veterans. Local money raised for local wounded vets.
So did you meet Bazon in the elevator?
I did meet Bezos in an elevator. Actually,
about
it
right.
was, I'm trying to remember who introduced me and said, come over. And that one was another elevator instance. We're riding the elevator on the way up, and he's looking, because on the elevator Fort Worth Club, it has, today's schedules of events. And he's over there looking. I said, well, what are you looking for? And he goes, well, I'm looking for Cowtown Warriors board meeting. I'm supposed to show up today. And I was like, is that a fact? What's your name, Marine?
I remember that meeting.
And he even said, well, Faison can't help himself. He was like, you know what, man? I'm a big believer in, you need to pay your dues. What do I need to do to pay my dues? And me, Carr, and Peterson looked over at him and said, well, to truly pay your dues means to run the event. And he jumped all over it. And he's done an incredible job. Then taking over Treasury, doing an incredible job. Which this is another reason, and I really want to get to this because this is going to help us start on your journey to where you've gotten. Is you really helped me out because when you took over Treasury, you go, hey Spann, there's good news and there's bad news. And he goes, the good news is you absolutely have every penny in and every penny out absolutely accounted for from the day you started this thing.
Your spreadsheets are phenomenal.
Yeah.
By the way.
And you go, the bad news is, what the hell is all this stuff? And I was just like, I don't know, man, you're the accountant. How do we categorize it? But it was funny is watching how you morph that into, because I'd done accounting in my MBA and whatnot, but it helped me understand the dynamics of accounting even more so to how I apply that to today, especially in my fund.
Well,
right?
And a lot of people, they're like, oh, debits and credits. That's accounting. It's simple. But then when you get into nonprofit accounting and you're dealing with funds and you have, your revenues from your donations, but then you also have revenues from raffle tickets and how much of that is deductible and how much is not. So it gets very complicated very quickly.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you're like, oh, well, this is all donation money. And it's like, well, actually, that's, when you start doing the tax returns, there's a lot of different buckets that things have to go into. And so I think that was where I was able to take my expertise and say, hey guys, we need to do this, and we need to make sure that we account for certain things with the ball and the money in the funds raised from the ball in certain ways. And that's what we were able to do that, and we are continuing to do that. And when I rolled off, I told Bezos, I was like, hey man, my phone is always on, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help you. Whether it's compliance questions or if it's questions about money or how do we account for this or, what do the CPAs, whenever we send our information to the CPAs to do the tax return, what information do we need to give them to make it a seamless process?
That was one of the things that was really special about Cowtown Warriors Board too is, we make jokes about, Marines can't read and write or count or anything else like that. But here's the reality of it. We had a CPA. We had a lawyer. We had several MBAs. We had wealth managers. We just really had some good, successful talent that had real-world experience post-Marine Corps time that were able to get in here and bring that business acumen to be able to get it where it was. And that's really one of the magical things about Cowtown Warriors was like, this isn't just a bunch of gaggle of whoever's, that got together to try to do something. We really had some sophisticated talent on there that made it special. Well, speaking of talent, because, they just handed this stuff to you, all this talent you have and all this success overnight, right? You got there with no road rash to get where you're at, right?
I've got quite a bit of road rash.
Well, let's start with that. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Woodlands, in a little bit north of Houston. Lived there for 18 years. Back when it was the Woodlands, it was very, very small, and now I think there's close to 300,000 people that live in the Woodlands.
Yeah.
Not what it is today. In fact, on Friday night, we actually drove down to Galveston to drop some friends off. They were going out on a cruise out of the port, and so dropped them off, and then drove back up on Saturday through the Woodlands, and just seeing how much that area has grown is amazing. But so went to high school in the Woodlands, and then left and went to Baylor University, and I was there 99 and 2000. Left Baylor. I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd gone to school for international business and So I left Baylor and went and lived with my brother up in Maryland. I was going to school up there, and then 9/11 happened. And it's funny because when 9/11 happened, I was living with some buddies of mine at that point, and they were all former Army MPs. And they'd always give me crap, and I was the only one who wasn't in the service then. And we actually, when 9/11 happened that morning, I remember that I was in the gym on Fort Detrick, and my buddy who was a former MP and then worked for DOD police, we were just working out, and then all of a sudden it's like everyone's kind of running around everywhere, and I'm like, what's going on here? I'm just sitting there, doing bench press, and he's like, we got to go. And so, at that point, I guess there was concern that that other plane that went down in Pennsylvania, that it was headed to Fort Detrick because of what Fort Detrick has on it and everything. And so,
for the audience, tell them what
right.
Fort Detrick means.
So Fort
to the
Detrick
military.
it's an Army fort that has a lot of the satellites and stuff for the red phones and stuff. And then they also have USAMRIID, which is the United States Army, it's like medical research and some I don't remember the acronym, but it's where they have the infectious diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's Ebola,
so it's a high value target for an enemy.
Yes, it is.
Enemy of the U.S.
So there was a lot of concern that was going to be one of the targets, and so everybody kind of stood up post. And so you have like
and for the audience that I'm sure most of everybody remembers, but maybe the younger audience is, you had the first plane that hit the tower, hit the second tower, one went down to Pennsylvania, one hit the Pentagon. There's chaos going on everywhere on 9/11. You didn't know what plane was going to hit what next, right? So that's what
right.
you're alluding to is like,
right.
hey, is there a fifth plane that's going to come and hit our location?
Right.
So you were like right there in the middle of like
and
danger
so I'm
zone.
just sitting there in the gym, and I'm a civilian, don't know, anything really about the military. And, all of a sudden my buddy comes running up and he's like, hey, we got to go. But at that point, Humvees are blocking all the base exits. No one's going anywhere. And so I'm just sitting there and the I guess the react room for the police department, and I'm just sitting there, kind of don't know what's going on. I'm just like a civilian watching everybody running around. So shortly after 9/11, my older brother had graduated Baylor. And
Speaking of brother, all right. So for the audience, let them know how many siblings you have.
So I've got 4 brothers, 3 sisters.
And where are you in the lineage?
I'm the third oldest, and so I've got 2 older brothers, one of which went and got a degree in Arabic from Baylor, and that was pre 9/11. So 9/11 happens, and he happened to have a degree in Arabic. So he went and he joined the Army as an Arabic linguist, and now he's a signals intelligence officer. But then my younger brother went and joined the Army with a 18 X-ray program. And so
for the audience, tell them what that is.
So he's a Green Beret, or he was a Green Beret, and so the 18 X-ray program was a pipeline that you sign up, and with a guaranteed spot to go to selection. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to be a Green Beret, but it gives you a spot because there's a lot of competition for spots. And so
talk to the audience what it means by having at least being able to get to show up to selection. What that means.
So when I guess with the Army, he would go through boot camp, and then he would go to like AIT, I think is what they call it, and then they have jump school, and then there's like a RIP.
Mm-hmm.
And then
recon induction platoon type thing.
But it's a type
similar.
That
so
type
yeah.
of thing. And then from there, they get a spot to go through selection in the pipeline. So, like for us, which MARSOC selection was very similar because it was kind of stood up by and manned by in the very beginning a lot of guys who were Green Berets in the special operations community, and so you get a chance to show up and say, for the next 3 weeks or whatever, we're going to put you through the paces, and this is what you do. And for me, I saw my brother kind of starting that pipeline, and I was like, well, I can't let my brothers go join the Army and me not do anything. So I went to the Marine Corps recruiter because if my brothers were Army, I had to one-up them, of course. So I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, and I was like, hey, I want to join the Marines. They're like, that's great. Here's the whole process, and the whole process going through MEPS and everything. And at that point, infantry for me was the only thing I wanted to do. And so
why is that?
Well, one, I wanted to be in combat, want to be close to combat. Plus, my younger brother, he was, going to be a Green Beret at that point. And so I was like, I wanted to be, right there on the front lines, making something not only of myself, but also that's where I thought I could be of the most help. So I was like, I'm going to go infantry contract. And they're like, yeah, so right now we have a 9-month wait on that because you can go admin, you can go motor T. There was a couple other MOSs that I could go.
That's one of them recruiters going, hey, I need to get these other billets filled, right? It's easy to find grunts, but it's harder to get
And so recruiter's looking at his board, and he's like, you're going to have to wait 9 months. And so I was like, okay, that's fine, I'll wait. And he's like, I think he was a little upset because he was trying to get his quotas.
Yeah.
But so I sat there and waited in the DEP program, and just kind of did my thing and did the PT. And I was bartending at the time in Maryland, in Frederick, Maryland. So I waited and went and joined. And
now, being that you enlisted out of Maryland, does that mean did you go to East Coast or were you West Coast?
I went East Coast.
Okay, so you went to Parris Island because you were living over there. Yeah.
So I was still a Texas resident. I was going to school in Maryland, and so it was just funny because now on my DD-214 it says I was recruited out of Maryland, and with the Hazelwood Act and stuff, I had to go through
all the process,
all that process to prove that I was a Texas resident.
Right. You just happened to be in Maryland at the time you signed up. Yeah.
So, so I sat and waited in the delayed entry program, and finally in 2002, went to boot camp. And so after boot camp, then went to SOI on the East Coast, and then
School of Infantry.
Yeah, School of Infantry. And from there, and when I went to School of Infantry, that's where you got to choose which kind of specialty you want to do. And so I became an 0351. I think Peterson was 51 as well.
Yeah, Dragon Gunners, right?
Well, so at that time we had SMAW, and then we did demo, which from what I hear, they've done away with 51s. I believe. I think they kind of like split up the small to 52s.
So you had the 11s, which were the regular infantry, 31s, which that was my initial primary MOS, which was machine gunner. 41s were mortars. 51s were assaultmen, demo, stuff like that. 52s were the tow gunners, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they've got a lot more now, and they've mixed them around because, especially 0321. Recon is now a primary MOS, but back then it was secondary MOS, right? You had all these secondary MOS.
Like 0317, I think, was a Scout Sniper.
Yeah, it's secondary MOS. Yeah.
So I did that, and then so I went to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. So I was over there.
Where for the audience, tell them where that's at.
That's in Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
So, and then went in 2006. I deployed with 3-5 to Iraq, and that's the deployment where I got hurt. So I was actually, Kyle Burton was there.
Yeah.
And
Sergeant Major Burton.
Yep, Sergeant Major Burton. He was a sergeant at the time, and I was the assault section leader.
Were you a corporal?
No, I was a sergeant.
You were a sergeant?
Yeah, sergeant in 06. And so we actually I was attached out to 3rd Platoon in India Company, and we were tasked with holding an OP right on the Euphrates River.
So tell the audience what OP is.
So it's pretty much an observation post, and we were kind of at this strategic position where we're right on MSR Michigan, and near Habaniya, and it was at the time that there was a lot of stuff coming out of Ramadi. Al-Zarqawi had just been killed, and so there was a lot of people coming out of Ramadi. There was, I think, some Army infantry and some Marine infantry battalions that were squeezing Ramadi at that time. And so there was a lot of...
squeezing, tell the audience what you mean by that.
So we had several battalions on multiple fronts that were, pushing to, retake Ramadi. And there was a lot of insurgents. That was a big insurgent stronghold at the time. And so there was a lot of insurgents that were, feeling the pressure, and so they were trying to escape, and they were coming down MSR, Michigan. So our battalion, as we're tasked to hold this MSR, and so we get hit on the first day of us setting up this OP, and so we're taking fire and everything, and everybody stands to on the rooftop, and we're returning fire, and we've got RPGs hitting over our head, and I think at that time everyone kind of gets a low grade concussion. Well, then the next day there was they had like engineer platoons come out and set up the HESCO barriers and kind of.
For the audience, tell them what a HESCO barrier is.
So HESCO barrier, it was kind of like a big wire square barrier that has this like felt cloth on the inside, and they'd fill it with sand. So instead of having to fill 1 million sandbags, you've got these HESCO barriers that you can use dozers and fill those up fairly quickly. And so they had set those up overnight. Well, the next morning, we had actually been up all night doing demo missions, taking down trees and setting up charges so that we can clear our fields of fire. And so we get back at like 5 in the morning.
Clearing fields of fire for the audience. I mean, you're opening it up that when the enemy comes running, you can at least accurately target them.
Right. So we have observation from the rooftops, and we can see that whether the enemy's coming or whatnot, and we can also see, because there was a lot of time at you'd have enemy crawling through the reeds, or you'd have cars driving by, and you can never tell if they're friendly or foe. So that morning, we got back about 5 in the morning, got my guys down to sleep, and about 7:30, all of a sudden we hear AK fire, and so everybody's jumping up, putting the gear on, and everything, and we were running in the hallway, and all of a sudden the car that had been coming up to our OP detonated, and
suicide bomber, and so and they estimate they had all the 155 shells, and the whole trunk of the car was full of explosives. So it was a fairly large detonation. So the blast went through the entire house, and so we were actually trying to get geared up and run up and to the top of the roof, and blast just knocked everyone back. So at that point I had a grade 2 concussion, and once we kind of came to and got up on the rooftop, Kyle Burton and the rest of the 3rd Platoon were up there, and we had the cami netting was all blown down, and so you're stuck up underneath that, and so we're trying to get one of our guys down off the rooftop, and you've got was he dead or hurt at that
he
time?
he was hurt. He just had a concussion as well. But all of his gear was like stuck into the cami netting, so we're trying to pull him.
Oh,
and,
man.
And Kyle and I were both up there, and we're trying to pull the guy up there. And it's funny because we were talking on Saturday, and he reminded me of the guy that, and we think that the guy was kind of, sometimes the people get forced to do things they don't want to, and so the guy was actually handcuffed to the steering wheel, and there was another guy that was in the passenger seat that was shooting an AK, trying to suppress the OP, the guys that were up on the rooftop, and so when he detonated, there was a hand with the steering wheel that went flying up onto the rooftop, and one of the guys found the guy's heart and put it into an ammo can and wanted to take it back with them. and the corpsman was like, "No, you can't do that." He's like, "No, this is like medically it's not safe." So they ended up taking that and throwing it away. But it was just weird because Kyle and I were looking at each other and we're like, "Steering wheel? What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. So, we get through all that, and a couple days later, they have sent another platoon to relieve us, and they do this at night. And so we're actually we load up in the the AAVs, and we're actually dropping off a sniper platoon at another OP, which is right on the Army AO. So as we're driving up, we get hit again, and the AAV that I was in ran over a triple stacked anti-tank mine, blew the front of the AAV off, and I think Kyle was in. Kyle was in that vehicle as well, and so I got another concussion. So by that time, it's 3 concussions in a week and a half period, and so that pulls me out of the fight for pretty much the rest of the deployment. And then from there, I started having my issues with TBI and head issues.
So for the audience, these traumatic brain injuries, these TBIs that Cagle's referring to, is there's still, especially during that time, even now, but more so then, a lot of ambiguity around them of just how bad these TBIs really are, that weren't getting the credit that they should be getting, right? I mean, you take your brain and it gets popped around in your skull, right? It is going to cause a lot of problems, right? And it affects, describe some of the effects of TBIs for the audience here.
For me, and granted, at that time, this was 2006, so there was a kind of you had this TBI and all that stuff, and PTSD was all stigmatized.
Yeah.
And so
you didn't want to tell anybody.
You didn't want to tell anybody that you had TBI. If you got taken out of the fight, that was kind of like the end of your career. And so, for me, I started having the headaches and some of the memory issues, and I worked through that. But it's like I would start trying to self-medicate, which leads to a whole other host of issues. And when you start having headaches and memory issues, and then they start putting you on medications, and that inhibits your ability to do certain things and certain jobs. And so I kind of suppressed it as much as possible so that I could continue on in my Marine Corps career. And so from there, I went over to Fast Company. I had to do a B billet.
Tell the audience what Fast Company is.
So Fast Company was it kind of a glorified infantry. So it's Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Teams, and they do a whole host of things. And I think it's kind of morphed now. I've been out for 10 years. But at that time, we did anti-terrorism security. So we had PRP commands that did strategic weapon security, and then you had Fast Companies, which had a bunch of different missions. Whether it's RFDFs and you're providing security for submarines in port, or if you're doing embassy security, or you're a reactionary force if things were to happen. So
you're the on-call unit,
right? Exactly.
Yep.
So went over there, did a B billet, and then did deployment to the Philippines, and we were doing BBSS missions.
Talk about what BBSS missions are.
It's Visit Board Search and Seizure. So it's kind of, you've got a vessel that is a suspect vessel, whether it's a ship, a large ship. It could be a smaller vessel, and you have different levels of VBSS. And so we would, we were out there in South China Sea attached to, we were with JSOTFP and JTF 515. This time was 2008. So we were actually out doing a training mission when I broke my back. And so not only, have I been dealing with TBI issues now, but now I have, a fracture in my L5. And at that point, we were so far out in the sea that, the helicopters only had like 500-mile range. So we couldn't get all the way back to where I needed to be to get medical attention. So I stayed on the ship for several months. And at that point,
with a broken back.
Yeah, with a broken back. So, do you remember the Princess of the Stars, the Filipino ferry that flipped over?
Mm-hmm.
So we were actually the closest ship on that to that when the incident happened, and so we stayed in the area and did search and rescue, and we were kind of pretty much doing box drills, and just staying in the immediate area until the Reagan Strike Group could get there, because they had a special ship. There was like a dry dock ship that would raise sunken ships, and you could work on them or whatnot. And so this ship, we needed to stay in the area, and we had some Navy divers that were on the ship, and so they kind of went and did an assessment and found out that there was a tanker on that ferry that had fertilizer, and so you've got this sunken ship now that has fertilizer tank. So their original plan to use underwater welding torches was no bueno, and so they had to wait till the Reagan Strike Group got there.
For the audience, FYI, fertilizer is a main contributor to explosives that are used, and all the nitrogen and everything else into it. Think of like the Oklahoma City bombing with Timothy McVeigh, right? That was used with canisters of fertilizer. So that's what Cagle's talking about. So keep going.
So at that point, I'm dealing with my injuries and stuff, and so it was quite a while till we got back to Guam for them to be able to even do like MRIs or anything. And so I had this, and I guess at that point my vertebrae had started recalcifying, and so I was doing better, but I still had pain, which was funny because when I went through selection for MARSOC,
which was after. Okay, just for the audience, let's just break this down. You're over there in Iraq. You've got basically 3 TBIs being blown all over the place. Then you go to even a more specialized unit. You break your back. You don't even get to immediate medical attention. You finally get to Guam. And you're like, yeah, hey, man, now that my brain and my back is totally screwed, I think I'm going to go to special operations.
And at that point, my spine had recalcified. And so it hurt, but it wasn't that bad. And then, so I went over to MARSOC, did selection, and
how long is selection in MARSOC?
At that point, it was 3 weeks.
Okay.
So
similar to what the Green Bridge going through. So they're going there.
Right.
They're assessing whether or not you get to go to the
right.
you get to go to the school or not. Right.
So it's a selection period, and so for me, no matter how much pain I was in, I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna not pass. Because for one, my brother had been through, and at that point he was several years in with the Green Berets, and so I kind of had this camaraderie with him, but also this competition, and so made it through selection, and then went and checked in over to MSOS and started the
what's MSOS for the audience?
Marine Special Operations School. Yep. So we started the pipeline, and we were doing some training, and then the pars articularis on my L5, the facet joints, completely sheared off. Mm. And so at that point, they're like, nope, you're done. And so I started going up to the Naval Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia, and they said, yes, your L5 is completely broken and ruptured the disc above and below, and so we're going to have to do a fusion. So it takes about another year for that whole process to go through, and they finally did the surgery, and they fused my L4, L5, and S1. And during that whole time, as something happens to you in the Marine Corps, if you're no good to the unit anymore, then they warehouse you somewhere. So I got sent over to Language Branch, Marine Special Operations School, and I was the senior enlisted advisor for the language school. And so I was there during my entire time while I was going through the med board and getting medically retired, and dealing with all my issues with still dealing with headaches, but also now I have all the medications that they're giving me for my back and for everything else, because I had 98% nerve damage down my leg and dealing with all the issues from that. And so I finally got my retirement package done, and so I was medically retired in 2012. And at that point, I moved back to Texas, which, my wife, Bethany, she and I had known each other growing up. And that I had also gone through a divorce at that time because of all the medications and everything that I was on. And so Bethany and I met back up online. She was friends with my sister, and she had actually posted on Facebook, post my sister had, and I was like, hey, I remember you. And so we started talking. I moved back to Texas, and she happened to live in the same town, and so that's how we kind of rekindled that relationship. And so for me, I'm dealing with all these medical issues, and I moved back to Texas, go to UTA and finish up my accounting degree, and start working for Clifton Larson Allen, which was SBF at that time. Rick Baumeister, you know him, and that whole group. So I was working in accounting. But during that entire time, I was still dealing with all my medical issues. At that point, the VA and they don't do this anymore, but they would auto ship medications. And so at one point I had, almost 500 pills of hydrocodone sitting in my house because, I've got all this medication, but I'm not wanting to, because when you're on so many different medications, you're like a walking zombie. I was highly functional still. I was doing all my work, but I was a walking zombie. And so it got to the point where I was looking in the mirror and I was like, this is not who I want to be. I put on a lot of weight, and, which you wouldn't tell now, but yeah. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a change. And at that point, I stopped taking my meds. I said, I'm going to get back into the gym, and I made that change, and, it's where I'm at now. So it was definitely, it wasn't an easy thing. It was a struggle for me, because you fight it on a daily basis. Because I have days where I wake up and there's a lot of pain here and there. Some days I'm like, do I really want to go to the gym? And some days I'm like, okay, let's get at it. But it's definitely it's been a struggle, but it's also been a blessing for me, because it kind of pushed me to where I am today.
So and this is really important for the audience. And I know the audience already figured this out, but I want to recap this. Is your discipline is one of the most incredible I've ever met, right? And, we've on Cowtown Words Board, other Marines that come to this, or special operations communities, everything else. Your discipline, I've always been just incredibly impressed by, right? So let's recap. You get hurt in combat in the infantry. Then you go over fast company, you get hurt, break your back. Then you still choose to go through the selection process to get into special operations until the body finally says no, right? And then even after all that, you're like, nope, this is what I'm going to go do. So your level of discipline is really, really incredible. And that's why often on this show, I tell people, look, the biggest liar in the room is the one in the mirror. And it was interesting when you said that. It made me think of that, because you were just like, this is not who I want to be. I've been lying to myself. This is not who I want to be, because the only person that can allow you or prevent you from doing anything is also that person in the mirror. But you have to make that decision and be disciplined to go. And it's not easy, right? They're not easy to get up and go, But let's dial this back a little bit to, here it is. You've done everything. You've been through TBIs, broken backs, and then now you finally are there at the show in the Marine Corps, because Marine Corps is very unforgiving. Listen, and we're not here to bag on the Marine Corps. We're not here to bag on the military, right? But the Marine Corps is a machine, and it is there to do a mission. And if you're not useful to that mission anymore, it's a decision that is at the snap of a finger. You're out, right? And it's probably a little callous the way you do it, but it is what it is, right?
It's just like with a business. If you got to trim the fat.
Yeah, if you're not profitable, it's time to go, right?
Right.
And but I'm sure that had to leave some feelings.
It did. And for me, because my ultimate goal was to, be they call them Marine Raiders now, was to be a Raider and to, be very successful, have a 20-year career, which actually I think I'll be at 20 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had to cut that short, it was kind of depressing. So when I moved back to Texas and I said, hey, now I got to do something else with my life. It's funny because I had a friend of mine years ago, he was big into business, and he would always tell me, it's like, accounting is the language of business. If you know accounting, you can be successful in business. And so that always stuck with me, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get an accounting degree, because I had started off international business back in 99, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I went back and got an accounting degree, and it's funny how the second time around, you're way more focused. Getting A's was easy then back when I was first in college, especially when you're a teen, and you want to go party. So you've got to, stay the course and focus. But this time around, it was fairly simple. And so got my accounting degree, went and worked for SPF and then CLA, and started doing nonprofit accounting. And for me, it was just that drive. I had to find something else to focus on. And it was always finding that next thing for me to focus and say, I'm not going to let my injuries from the past dictate my life. Because when you let something like that, like an injury, dictate your life, and you can very easily get depressed. You get suckered into taking all these meds, and then you get
or
down that
worse,
whole rabbit hole,
man.
alcoholism.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, that's why the gym was my outlet, and the thing that kind of helped me to get out of that. And so I've worked in accounting for a few years, and then it's funny because the current job that I have, I wouldn't have even taken it, and in fact, almost didn't take that opportunity. Bethany, my wife, who's a hairstylist, she was cutting hair. One of her customers, who happened to be a executive recruiter, and she was looking for a position to fill, and the company was looking for a guy who had military service, had background in accounting, wanted to learn how to fly, and also had history with agriculture. And so at that time, I was actually we have the family trust has farms, and so I've been dealing with being the trustee of the trust. And so Bethany was like, that sounds like Andrew. And so she's like, have you found anybody for this position yet? And she's like, no, we're still looking. And so Bethany told me about it, and she's like, why don't you give Andrew a call? And so I took the call, and I was like, at first I was like, nah, I don't know, because I just gotten promoted at CLA, and they were starting up a nonprofit outsourcing division where we would provide outsourcing services to clients, whether it's bookkeeping needs or helping them to grow their board, or if they need help with writing proposals or whatnot. So I was on my way up in CLA, and so I was like, I don't know if I really want to take this opportunity. And Bethany's like, why not give it a shot? So I went and interviewed, and with the executive recruiter, and that went well. And then I interviewed with, in fact, she called me the day after I interviewed, and she said, hey, and that was on I think a Thursday afternoon. She said, hey, the owners of the company are coming in town Monday, and they want to interview you Monday. Are you available? I said, sure. So I went and interviewed, and they hired me on the spot. And for me, I, just by not taking that opportunity, I almost said no to the interview. And if I had said no to the interview, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm at today.
Yeah. So. And so let's talk about that. Which really funny, and you and I joke around about this, like with a lot of other guys, is the easiest days of our life are when people are trying to kill us, right? Someone trying to shoot at us. Is that it's even more scary to go, I have the safety and security of CLA. I've got benefits. I'm on the promotion track. And I'm going to put all that to the side and go chase this thing that I don't know as much about. But there must have been something about it that was, because it's scary to leave the safety and security and stuff to go do something else. What was it about it that drew you to go, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk of the safety and security of what I have at CLA to go do this?
Well, for me, it was kind of the opportunity. And so what I started out with the company was kind of the executive assistant for the president of the company. And so I would, whatever he needed done, he was traveling a lot. And so whether it was, doing stuff at the home office, doing the books, setting stuff up for the CPAs during tax time, making sure all the compliance issues are handled, dealing with the day-to-day, do a lot of the scheduling for his travel and for books. So it was something new for me. And, I said, well, why not? And so I got into it, and I was there for probably about 6 months. And then the owner of the company unexpectedly passed away. Mm. And so after that happened, there was kind of a void that needed to be filled, because the founder of the company, the grandfather, had he was still alive, and so he had turned the company over to his son, and then the company reverted back to him. And so now he wanted me to step up. And so I'd been at the company 6 months, still kind of learning everything. And so then he said, we're going to promote you to vice president of the company. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And so once again, I had to step up. And I'm still learning through a fire hose. Everything getting thrown at you from, tax issues to compliance issues to, now dealing with the manufacturing plant and all of the real estate holdings that we have.
Just for the audience sake, this is not just like a company one-stop shop. I mean, there's multiple businesses, multiple assets, multiple investments that are involved. So more like a family office kind of situation.
So it's, the home office is a holding corporation that has a manufacturing plant, which is our main operating income. And then we have residential real estate in Florida, and then we have commercial real estate in Dallas and other places, and residential real estate overseas, and then ranching operations. And so there's, I'm constantly...
A lot of moving parts. Yes, a lot of moving parts. Yeah.
And so...
You've had 6 months to try to learn all this, and now they're like, hey, we're going to promote you.
Right. So, at that point, for me, it's just like, hey, I got to step up and do it and learn. And so it's been a very interesting journey, but it's been good. And it's actually, for me, it keeps me busy. So I don't think about, back issues or anything like that.
Then you ended up getting another promotion.
I did. So at this point now, I am the managing member of the company. Myself and the owner of the company, we run it together, in which we're great team. And our operating company, we've got a great team over there as well. In fact, you met Terry on Terry Buckley. He's the president of LGS Technologies, which is one of our subsidiaries, and so we've got a great team over there, and they keep this operation running.
Yeah. So let's run through some timelines here. So 2001, you go in the Marines.
2002.
2002.
Yep.
That's right. 2006 is when you get your TBIs. 2008 is when you break your back, right?
Yep.
What year did you go over to MARSOC?
It was 2000. Well, I went to selection and then went over there in 2009.
2009. You're over there in MARSOC when they're like, hey, we got to start doing these surgeries, and then you separated in
12.
in 2012. All right, so you get MedSep, right? And then you go and finish. You go to UTA. You graduate. What year?
December 2014.
So 2014, UTA, and then you go to
SBF and CLA.
And CLA, and then in what year?
So 2018.
So, all right, so CLA, and then 2018. That's when you get the introduction to go over to this other place, right? This other family office. And then you start off as a role of an executive assistant. You elevate to vice president, to current day being a managing member. And so looking through this is here we are in 2022, and in a matter of 20 years, that's a hell of a timeline to do all that. That's a lot. That's a lot, especially in the last 4 years. And you and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago up in Colorado. It's just like it's just you blink, like like even your son, right? I mean, just like what he's what? How old?
He'll turn 7 in 10 days.
Yeah, and your daughter's getting ready to turn.
15.
She's getting ready to be driving age. It's just crazy how fast this time goes by, but. Let me ask you this, because I think I really want the audience listen. From 2002, did 10 years in the Marines. Call it 4 injuries, because really it's 3 TBIs and then the back injury. Going to college, being on the fast track at a company, making a drastic change to come over to a family office, elevating quickly through that. That's not normal. Normal people don't do that, right? And by what I mean by that is I think most people, I consider them normal because status quo, not interrupting the waves. Let me do my 40 hours a week. Let me, be at home on the weekends. Let me have the white picket fence and all this other stuff, playing the safe play. To go through that kind of timeline in 20 years, what is it inside you internally? Because that's a lot of gas pedal.
For me, one, there was always this, coming up with a family of 8 kids, there was always this competition. And we always joked that my oldest brother, he went to Princeton when he was 17, got a degree in music, but then he went to go teach, and then he went to seminary, and then when he got a master's in advanced mathematics. And so there was all this competition between my brothers and I. And but there's also this, kind of drive in me to not only make something of myself, but I always want to, be as successful as possible. And now my drive is, hey, I want to not only do the best that I can, but also for my family's sake. Now it's about the family. And so I think for me with, my injuries, those aren't what make me. My injuries are a part of me, but that's not who I am. The Marine Corps was a part of me, but it's not who I am. So I'm always looking for the newest way that I can improve myself.
Yeah.
So it's still an evolving process, and I'm still on the journey. But
I think that's what the show is really about, though. It's folks like us. Enough's never enough. Right. We keep pushing that goalpost back, right? We like to be tested.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason guys like you and I have done the things that we've done to get to where we're at is because there's just that internal burning of like, how do I push this thing next? What's the next thing? When failure is constantly on your doorsteps, right? And you're gonna fail, right? That's what I try to tell people. Like, look, like even my daughter, I go, look, I'm the only one not up her ass right now, right? So she's 21. She's trying to figure out, she's taking a year off from school. She got herself a job. She's self-reliant. She's paying her own bills, whatnot. And she, like, even when she was up for Christmas, she was like, Dad, thanks for not being up my ass like everybody else. And I just said, look, well, first off, I dropped out of high school at 17 and went in the Marines, so I ain't got a lot of room to talk. But I said, too, what I learned is when I went in the Marines, I thought I was going to be in the Marines, for 20, 30 years.
Right.
And then after 6 years, I was like, no, it's time to go to the next thing. And then when I joined the PD, I thought I was going to be at the PD for the next 20, 30 years. And then I was like, no. And actually on the night that I graduated TCU, ready to take some other job offers within the next couple months, Dwayne Frito was killed on the side of the highway by drunk drivers. So I felt like I had to stay. And then fast forward, went and got my MBA from TCU, had an offer to go to this other company, and left it all and lost it all 24 months later. Lost it all. Like, you remember, right? I lost it all. Like, had to sell my house, hold it back for $4 million, doing the whole 9 yards. And then still bounce back from that. And I said, so I told my daughter, is like, look, you don't have to know what your future is going to be, because if you would have told me 30 years ago, right? Like, I went to the Marines, enlisted in the Marines in 1991. And I mean, we're talking now, we're coming up on 31 years later. I would have never thought my path's going to be this, but I always knew inside of me that there's got to be something. I got to go find it, right? I got to go do it. But having a good idea and no execution isn't going to do it. But you're going to fail. You're going to have problems. Sometimes you're in control of making decisions that alter that, and sometimes other people are in control of making those decisions that have caused these barriers that get in your way. But you got to make that choice to get over them.
Well, it's what you do after you fail.
Yeah.
And you decide to pick yourself up. So, like, for me, after my injuries, I could have wallowed in pity and said, woe is me, and then just kind of, lived off the government.
And we see that a lot with vets.
We do, and unfortunately, I always try to tell, fellow vets that have been injured or wounded, and, hey, it's not the end of the day. You had this injury, and it's not everything that the injury is not you. It's a part of you, and you deal with it, and different people deal with it in different ways, but you need to take that experience and learn from it and grow from it. And thankfully, I was able to do that, and I had a lot of support along the way. But unfortunately, a lot of times you see, vets that they allow it to kind of overcome them.
Well, and one of the things too that I think one of the reasons you and I have been just good close friends, and I mean you've always inspired me. Now this is the first time I've ever telling you that, because I got an audience and whatnot, but I would never tell you one-on-one, because if I start being nice to you, you're going to wonder, what did I do, or what am I getting ready to do, right?
What check am I going to cut?
What check do I got to cut? But it was, just your story and everything else, and you and I share a lot of similar paths in the Marine Corps, that, just that drive and desire to just dig in and go. And one of the things you and I have talked about for many years is just that purpose, right? And that purpose doesn't have to stay the same purpose. That purpose evolves and changes. Like I said, from going to the Marine Corps, PD, that other company, and then how we're at. But what's really funny, too, is one of the things that I think makes guys like you and I, or folks like you and I, successful at what we do, is we become masters at becoming more efficient at stuff. But what folks don't see is they see the fruits our trees are bearing, but they don't see all the manicuring, planting, and watering and fertilizing of that tree to get it where it's at. So, for example, when Cagle came up to see me, flew in on a Sunday, and then was supposed to fly out Tuesday. We'll get to that in a second. But here it was. We were on Sunday. I was showing him around Colorado. Both he and I are on and off the phone. It's Sunday. We're still working. Yeah. On Monday, right? Getting out there to go ice fishing. We were doing it all the way up, leading up to it. Then we went, and then I think we ended that night about 7 p.m. because we were there might have been some alcohol. There was some alcohol that got drank during that. And then here it was on Tuesday. In fact, I remember we're driving to the airport. You're on the phone. You're dealing with problems all over the world. Matter of fact, if I remember, you had a call with someone about something in Switzerland, something in Florida, something everywhere. I mean, you were all over. I mean, you got all these things that you're managing, all these issues. So we're still working. So we get there, and because we were driving to Durango, and it's kind of the bigger city, but it's about an hour away from where our house is in Colorado, we drive you off at the airport, and Laura and I were like, you know what? Let's go catch a movie. Let's go get a movie and then go get dinner. And thank goodness we did, because when we were in the movie, I saw my phone light up, and it was a message from you. You're like, yeah, there's something wrong with the plane. They're going to get delayed. And then we were leaving there, and I was like, hey, you good? And you're like, yeah, I think they're going to try to get it out of here later. And I said, well, we're going to go eat dinner. Let me know. And then you were like, yeah, they're going to try to get another. They can't get another flight for me until the next afternoon. And I said, hey, we're leaving dinner. We're on our way to get you. So then we drove back. And then the next day, right? So you got to be flexible, right? Because sometimes things are outside of your control. So you're still being flexible, getting all that done. And then next day, we get to the day after that, we get you to the airport, get you set off, right? But people don't understand is they were like, oh, wow, you're in this position. You can go Colorado, have a good time. But they don't realize it's like, yeah, we are. We're doing up there. Right. You're doing some things, have fun. But let me tell you what's going on before and after.
You're constantly working. There's a lot of prep work. And when you're at that level, not only are you wrangling cats, so to speak, but you're constantly putting out fires. You're always the consummate fireman. I'm always dealing with issues, and you're always dealing with issues, and the current real estate issues you have right now, and it's but I think because of the environments that we've been put in before, and we've taken our experiences in the Marine Corps, we're able to handle a lot of these issues, whereas certain people would be freaking out on certain things, and we're kind of like, we roll with it. And I think that's what helps us. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the people that we have associated with in business and everything else are, former militaries of the former members of the military, the Marine Corps in general.
Yeah, and that I think that's an important point I'd like you to talk about is the importance of your circle. Right? Because I think that's what happens with some of these vets that do get hurt is they're surrounded by the woe is me guys or folks, right? Guys or girls. Oh, I'm hurt. I can't go do anything. And it becomes that death spiral, right?
And I think for me, getting on the board of the Cowtown, that was one of the bigger drivers for me to get on the board of Cowtown is that camaraderie with the other Marines. And, all of those guys are very successful in whatever business they're in. And so seeing that and knowing that, hey, I can do better. And if you surround yourself with, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but if you have, a great team and you surround yourself with very successful people, then they are going to elevate you up to that level. If you surround yourself with people who are, all self-deprecating and, woe is me, then that's what you're going to end up, that's the mentality you're going to end up having. So I knew that I had to surround myself with, it's very successful players. And so, I was blessed to have met you and the
well,
guys
it's a blessing
on the
and a curse to meet me.
Well, yes. We take separate elevators, though.
Well, and that's the thing is, and this is what I try to explain to folks is like, look, you don't have to dump your friends. You just got to change your circles, right? So there's a lot of folks that they're still good friends. Yep. They're people I care about, but they're not my circle, right? Is I want to surround myself.
You don't ask them for advice. You don't.
No.
In them
when I see them,
things.
It is truly, let's go get a beer and catch up, right? But I want to surround myself and have surrounded myself with peers and people that I look up to and mentors and friends like you that I'm like, because that keeps the driver going. Because look, what the audience is, here's the thing for the audience. Just because you and I have done some pretty amazing things doesn't mean that we don't have our days that we wake up and go, man, I don't want to do this today. Or I could skip today. Or I just don't want to I don't want to do the hard work today. But the difference is even though we want to have those moments, we put them aside and dig in and go, right? And it helps being surrounded with other folks that are the same way because we help keep each other accountable. But it's also, very humanizing, I think, for us because it's like, man, so I'm not the only one that just wakes up on days like, I just don't want to do anything today. Right. And then you're like, nah, Marine, step up, man. Hey, look, we all have those days. Let's go. So we help each other lift up, right? We help each other hold each other accountable. And then it comes down to establishing those teams and trusting in those teams, that teamwork and camaraderie we learned in the Marines that we convey forward that helps us get there. But we do have those days, right? There's days where we're tired. Like currently, my phone, as you've seen, is just sitting here blowing up because I made my way back from Colorado Thursday. Then, but we split the drive up now because just trying to make a 13-hour drive is just way too much. And normally I fly back and forth, but we knew we were going to be back for a couple months, so we needed to get the vehicles back. And then so we split it up, stopping in Amarillo. But now we're driving through inclement weather. Mm-hmm. So we were driving out of a blizzard, and then they had the big ice storm here. Like this is no kidding. Like when we were leaving Amarillo Friday to come here, we were keeping like probably about 100-yard distance behind anybody else because we were seeing ice come off their vehicles and hit other vehicles' windshields, and they were blasting off the side of the road from accidents and stuff. It was crazy. So it took us a lot longer to get here, so I lost time. And then, of course, we're back in town, so, Saturday is booked with stuff. We got Cowtown Warriors, and then yesterday. So here it is Monday. I've lost 4 days.
Right.
And for the normal person out there that just has a regular 40-hour week, they just take a couple of days off. That's fine. They just get right back to it. But folks like us, man, we got to make up for that last 4 days. So there's all these things on fire. And I got all these accounts I got to call for all these different investors, stuff like that. But it's just, hey, it's a part of what we do. We still get up early. We still make the grind. We still go do it because we have that drive and desire to get to where we want to be next.
Sure. Well, you got to make the habits. And once you make it a habit, it's a lot easier to keep up with. Whether it's get up and making your bed, and get up and go to the gym. For me, I get up and try to go to the gym every single morning. And sometimes my wife's like, "You going to the gym again?" I'm like, "Well, I have to," because for me that's my outlet, but it also keeps my body strong. And especially with my back fusion, I need to keep my back. And I think. We're both swimmers.
Yeah,
used to be swimmers.
We still a pretty good job in the water.
A little bit, but that actually was, I think, one of the biggest things that helped me through my injury was swimming, and I just kept up with it on a daily basis. So you make habits of things, good or bad, and you just keep up with it. And so that's for me. It's like I do these things on a daily basis. Like you gave me the oak journal recently. And so that's like, something you kind of make a habit, and then it just becomes easy to keep up with that. And so, do that with every aspect of your life, whether it's, making saving habits. And that's one of the things we're teaching the kids right now. And Harry he's all about his savings account that we set up for him. And so, but it's like, setting up these habits. And so I have a good buddy of mine that is a wounded vet as well, and he's kind of had his ups and downs. And I was like, just what are your daily habits? He's like, well, this, that. And I was like, do you make that something you do every day and make a conscious effort to do that every day? And he's like, well, no. I said, well, maybe try that. And so it's it's a work in progress, but that's what you do. But I think if you do the little things and make those daily habits, then the big things are not going to be as hard because you have the building blocks.
Let's talk about the importance of that, these habits, these rituals, right? So that oak journal, that thing was huge for me is because, as a matter of fact, in last week's meeting, we do these Monday Zooms with the team on the fun stuff, right? And I always have a weekly saying, right? And one of the things I learned is if something happens that's within your control, take control over it, make whatever adjustments you need to make it happen. But sometimes things happen that are outside of your control, but you have the ability to create workarounds or influence it. Don't have control over it, but workarounds or influence it. And then there's times where things are out of your control. You can't have a workaround. You can't have an influence or anything. It's what I call being a hamster on the wheel, right? You're just going to spend a lot of time and energy getting tired, going nowhere real quick. You have to identify truly what those are and just say, hey, either outsource it or get rid of it, right? Because you're just going to waste a lot of time. And so for me, it is I'm really not you're more of a rigid, structured person than I am.
Right.
And I'm not, but I need to have that structure. And that's why Oak Journal is really, really important for me is because getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. people go, oh, you do that because you were in the military. I'm like, no, man, there's nobody who hates getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Matter of fact, when I'm back in Texas and I'm shifting from Colorado time zone, I gain an hour.
Sure.
Right? Because, here I get up at what is Colorado 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Is, 5 a.m. here, right? So I feel like I've gained an hour, right? But when I go back to Colorado and I need to set it getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning here, it's 3 o'clock in the morning back in Colorado. So I got to make those shifts. But it's important to be disciplined and stick to that because I do my 10-10-10 in the mornings, right? Like the Oak Journal talks about, is I do 10 minutes of just calm motivation. I use an app called Calm App. We'll post it on here. Dude, it's just 10 minutes of just blocking everything out. That's really one of the hardest things I've ever done. Yeah. Is to sit there completely quiet, blocking everything out. And I still haven't done a full 10 minutes yet. I mean, I do the 10 minutes, go through the motions, but I haven't been able to sit there for 10 minutes and go, wow, I completely blocked out the world. Then I do 10 minutes of reading, right? And I've got some of these books that I've been working on. I go through them a second and third time, making notes. What can I do to become a better leader? And then 10 minutes of journaling in the Oak Journal by, and it starts off, what are the 3 things you're grateful for today? What are the 3 most important tasks you got to get done today? What is today's vision? And then it'll ask you a question, you prompt, and you just kind of write that out. Yeah, so the importance of these rituals are very important, and it is hard. 30-minute ritual in the morning seemed like an eternity in the beginning, and now it's just a matter of minutes, and it just helps me set my day and my focus, right? And I think that's important for people that are going to be successful to have these habits and rituals, right?
Definitely. And, whether it's like, hey, and I think you do this, you have a specific time of the day or time of the week where you answer all your emails. Because if you're constantly chasing every single email and chasing all that, then you get bogged down, and the bigger things you're not able to, accomplish those as efficiently because you're constantly bogging yourself down with the small things.
So you're 1,000,000% right on that. I check emails 3 times a day. So after I do my morning ritual, I go right in to set my alarms on my phone for whatever meetings I have. So if I have a call at 10, I got an alarm at 9:55. You got a call in 5. If I got a meeting at 11, I got an alarm at 10:30 says leave for that meeting, so forth. So that way I have that set in there. There's no reason for me to miss anything. And then I go in and I look at emails, right? And I clear out because, matter of fact, I am subscribed to anything that is not presently relevant to personal or business, right? Because it does, and I found that starting to unsubscribe to everything.
I've been doing the same thing.
After about 2-3 weeks, your email box clutter gets down, right? And then, so I look, what do I need? Anything else? The second time I look at emails in the evening. So starting at around 6:30 is when I start winding down. And that's how I start to end cap my day, is going, okay, let me look through emails. Is there anything that I've missed? And then I start my evening routine. So I have a morning routine, but I also have an evening routine as well. And we won't make sausage, all the stuff I do in the mornings and the evenings. So the only third time I look at emails is someone sends me a message and says, did you see the email I sent just now?
Right. And that's the closest alligator to the boat.
Closest alligator to the boat. One of my favorite sayings of all times. But that's what's really important, because you could be distracted and never get anything done by looking at email all day long, and you're like that hamster on the wheel. Right. Spend a lot of time and energy going nowhere real fast, right? And so having those rituals and those things are very, very important, right? And especially with you and your travel schedule.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things that I've had to learn in this short period of time, is not only how to manage my time, but how to decipher what are the most important things that I need to take care of right now. Because when you do start getting bogged down with all little things, sometimes you miss the big things, and that can have huge implications, especially in business. If you miss an email that has a deadline, and there's a contract that's on the line because you miss something, or it's not signed or it's not filled out in a timely manner, then financial implications are huge. So that's one thing I've had to train myself, and whether it's the little habits with your emails or responding to calls, or making sure that you're following through with everything. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's little things that add up to big things.
Well, and also managing who doesn't have access to you, who does have access, and when and how much access they have.
Yes.
And you got a lot of folks out there like, well, that sounds really pretentious. No, there's no way that you got, folks like us pull off what we pull off if we allow everybody to have access to us all the time. So we have to control our time. We have to manage our time. We have to manage all these things, especially with you, because you're on a plane how many times a month?
Depends on what's going on. So like right now we have several projects going on in Florida, and so like last year I took 17 trips down to Florida, which some people are like, oh yeah, lucky you. I'm like, yeah, well, and not so much because you're
deal with Miami Airport. Then tell me,
yes,
yeah.
dealing with those issues, and so whether it's flying there or driving up to the ranch to handle issues there, or going out. Right now we're looking to expand, and so flying out to Colorado or flying to other areas looking at properties or whatnot, and so it's a lot of travel time, and which takes its toll. Not only on you having to deal with airports and everything, but also family. Everyone's vying for your time, and like you were talking about, like sometimes you have to prioritize. And granted, you make time for your family, of course, but you also have business things that you have to make time for. But then you still want to kind of cultivate your friendships and relationships as well. So you have, prioritizing your time and saying, hey, I've got like a 3-hour window. Let's go to lunch. Let's get this done. But, you schedule that and you put that into your schedule. And it makes it easier for you once you do that and you make it a habit and you can say, all right, well, and sometimes it sounds pretentious to say, oh, talk to my assistant or get it on my schedule, but when they don't see everything else that you've got going on, then it's kind of like, well.
So I used to feel guilty when I was like, man, I feel like I haven't talked to Cagle, seen Cagle in a long time, and now that's evolved to is when we do connect, we get to see each other, jump on the phone. It's like there has been no missed time because we both understand. Right? Like, no, hey, I get it.
Your time is valuable, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's like you're in the same shoes, right? So it's almost like you that circles we were talking about. You have to be in circles with people that are in the same shoes of going, no, I completely get it. But when we do get something, we put it on the calendar, and you respect the calendar, right? And then that's literally how I have to run my life, where it does sound pretentious whenever I have an old friend that's not in one of the, professional circles here that says, you want to go get a beer? And I'm like, well, what does 60 days look like for you? Right. And it's not because I don't want to. It's because literally that's my lead time on everything that's full. Like I was looking at my, you and I have been talking about these air passes, right? Yeah. Just to be able to give me more convenience of like, hey, I need to cancel this ticket on my way to the airport because something else came up. Or I need to be at the airport in 2 hours. I can get it, and I won't make sausage off what the air pass is today. But like we were talking, because I was sitting there looking at my travel for just this month. Like I was like, oh yeah, man, I got to fly out this Thursday. I'll fly back in a couple days later. Then the following week I got to be down to Florida. Then I come back. It's just all these things that you're like, man, I got to make sure that calendar's there, because even if I got to go fly somewhere for 3-4 days, when I come back, I'm trying to still manage as many things back here as possible, but then I got to come back and still play catch up, because that's when everything's going to go wrong is the second you get on that plane, right? And you got to deal with that. So let's go back to 20-year-old self. Andrew Cagle, 20-year-old self, would actually listen to present-day Andrew Cagle on one thing. What's that one thing you'd go back and tell 20-year-old self?
For me, I'd say it'd be, always follow through. Whether it's to follow through with something small, telling your child that you're going to go do something that weekend, or following through with say I promised Jeremy Spann that I would, whether it's investing with you or hey, we're going to go out for drinks, and just whatever you're doing, if you tell someone you're going to do something, then you follow through with that. There have been times in my life that I haven't followed through, and I've regretted it in the end. Certain things that I've done, and I said, you know what, if I had followed through, my life would be different. little habits too. So if I had started a savings account when I was a young kid, I'd be in a different place right now. And those are things that now I'm teaching my kids to do is, always follow through with everything and be deliberate with all your decision making. If you just make rash decisions and don't follow through with what you say you're going to do, then not only are you letting people down, but then you're letting yourself down. There's been times in my life. One thing that I didn't follow through with, and I kind of wish I had, but now I can't, was becoming a pilot and flying. And so, unfortunately, now with my back injury and everything, I'm not able to follow through with becoming a pilot. But had I done that when I was younger, then it would have, been a different path for me. So,
the beauty of asking that question at the end of the show is even after a year and a half, I get different answers every time. That's how much candor is in, and I think one of the things that we do as parents is that one thing that we wish we would have done more of. If we at 20, we can instill that in our kids, and it's what you're doing now, right? You're instilling in them to go, hey, do your follow through, because if you break promises to the person in the mirror, then it makes it really easy to break promises to everybody else, right?
Right.
And so you got to follow through with even your promises to yourself, right? Things that you say you're going to do for yourself. Scariest question I was ever asked in my entire life was by my executive coach, Tony Ford. Said, man, what do you do for personal enjoyment? Well, I like to go shoot. I like to travel. I like to go hiking. No. What do you do for you?
Right.
And I didn't have an answer. Still in search of that answer, but at least now I'm putting some time. I've promised I'm going to try to find out what is that personal. Yeah, sure, I like shooting, hiking, and doing all this stuff, but what do I really do for personal enjoyment? Because let's face it, 50's knocking on the door and right around the corner, and I really don't want to work all my life. So you're right. That's great sound advice. It's just that follow through, right, to do that. So normally at this stage of the game, we'd ask, hey, how do people get in touch with you? But you and I discussed this before. Right. Your time is very, very protected for very, very good reasons. You got a lot of moving parts. So if somebody, for some reason, would like to reach out to Cagle here, just reach out to me. Let me find out what you want to get in touch with him for. Let me run it through with him, and if he agrees, then we'll get you connected. And man, I appreciate you coming here.
And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as usual, if you're driving, you didn't have time to learn more, hear more on this episode, you can always go and find more information at myexperiencedrealtor.com. Click on Andrew Cagle. Amazing story, inspirational individual with lots of other episodes on there that are great. And of course, if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, hit that find a trusted professional. We'll get you, if it's not here in Fort Worth, we'll get you connected with a professional somewhere, wherever you're looking, no matter where it is on the planet. Andrew, thanks for coming in, brother.
Sir.